Hi kids! We are back on another edition of Reading with Joan. I hope you have fun as you join us as we read the various books we have on the show.
Reading with Joan, the place for all the fun.
Hi everyone, it's Little J. Today we're reading British and we're starting from where Big J stopped. Remember, today we're reading the topic Victorian. In the scramble for Africa. In the 1880s, the British fight against slavery around the world became part of a new phase of the empire. For decades, Britain had been working to replace the slave trade with other kinds of trade with Africa. Now the British would take this project much further. They would take control over much more of the continent than over before. The leaders of Europe, the USA and Ottoman Empire met in 1884 to make a plan to colonize Africa. This was the Berlin Conference, a meeting which was the beginning of the scramble for Africa, the years in which European empires took control over the continent. No African leaders were invited to the conference. That's not nice. For the European countries, new colonies in Africa would bring new markets to Southeast and money and power to compete with other empires and for Europeans to settle. Britain also said that controlling parts of Africa would be part of the British mission to end slavery there. The Prince of Wales, speaking at an anti-slavery meeting in London, said that the best chance of a complete abolition of slavery will lie in civilization, in opening up those great countries in Asia and Africa, many parts of which are known now to but the Europeans. The idea which the prince needed to explain was that white people knew best what civilization should be. To bring civilization, Christianity and trade to African people. Up until this point, much of Africa had not been explored by Europeans. Lands away from the coast were still unknown and mysterious. But by the 1880s, the Victorian age of scientific progress was in full swing. Exploring and colonizing Africa seemed like a tempting challenge on the way to a more modern world. New science and technology powered Europeans' takeover of Africa. Steam riverboats took their army straight to the heart of the continent. New medicines helped Europeans survive tropical diseases like malaria. Advanced machine guns and improved rifles let European soldiers win battles against much bigger armies of Africans. That's not good at all. The scramble for Africa happened quickly. In 1817, only 10% of Africa land was controlled by Europeans. By 1900, only 10% of African land was ruled by Africans, and the rest belonged to Europe. Britain had been especially successful. 45 million people, or 1/3 of all Africans, became British colonial subjects. That meant that there were more British subjects in Africa than in the United Kingdom. People back home in Britain followed the dramatic growth of the British Empire. The stories of British explorers, hunters, and soldiers in Africa were told as heroic adventures into an exotic land. Newspaper reporters turned colonization into entertainment, and the public loved it. Maps showed the land ruled by the British Empire all around the world, colored in pink. It should have been red like British Army uniform, but the map makers whitened the colors so that place names would stand out better. Wow. It was exciting for people to Britain to feel that their country could rule so much of the world, and for some people it proved that the British were special. The people of Britain were fascinated by new things. They were learning about the people of Africa. Each new tribe the British met as they explored was studied and put into categories. Scientists discovered that different races had different sizes and shapes of skull, and used this knowledge to come up with theories about racial types. Each type was said to have its own characteristics. The The Nedabella people were thought to be savage warriors. The Yoruba were supposed to be obsessed with money, and the Zulu were believed to be superstitious. Racial theories like this mix with the idea of the social warning. Increasingly, people believed that if the British were ruling over so much of the world, it must be because they had evolved to be stronger and more intelligent than other races. Some people from parts of Africa which Europeans had recently conquered came to Britain as a kind of museum. Big exhibitions were popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Millions of visitors bought tickets to see exotic objects, animals, and people from around the world. Colonial exhibitions often included native villages, sometimes now called human zoos. These were recreated village scenes with huts in which real Africans acted out their daily lives back in Africa. The villages were often less real than they seem. In 1904, a group of around 100 Somalis lived in a village of the Bradford exhibition for several months. When they left, the local newspaper reported that a surprising number of the Somalis actually spoke English and wore European suits. Wow! It's amazing. They were professional performers, and the leaders of the group were making good money. After Bradford, they were on their way to an exhibition in Belgium. They are not the only group of African performers to travel around European exhibitions after. I never knew that Britain was about to rule Africa, but then miracle happened. Thank you for joining us on Reading with Joan. Bye!
Hi kids, how are you? I hope you enjoyed our last story. I really enjoyed it. And today we have another special story for you. So come along, let's find out our next story from our very cherished book, Story from the Caribbean. I hope you enjoy it as we read today. The title of today's story is The Race Between the Toad and the Donkey. And it's a story that is based on a folktale from Jamaica. Okay, so today's story is from Jamaica. Guys, are you ready to listen? Okay, let's go. There was always one kind of competition or the other going on between the animals on the savannah. This day was no different. This day, Donkey and Toad were arguing about which one of them would beat the other in a race. Laughed the donkey. Your legs are too small compared to mine. There is no way you can beat me in a race. The toad refused to be thrown by the mocking jest of the donkey. He was not going to be openly ridiculed in front of a whole village. All the animals were already started to gather round, itching to see what all the commotion was about. Don't stand for that, Toad, Fowl called. Show him you are the bigger man. Bigger man? Laughed Donkey. Chance would be a fine thing. Toad is a tiny little squid. Toad had had enough of being the butt of Donkey's joke, and he puffed out his chest in anger. Okay, he croaked. You may be bigger, but you definitely are not cleverer. I will raise your big fat donkey, hide and beat you hands down. The crowd that had gathered laughed and cheered. You tell him, Toad. That's right. Toad, you can do it. Yes, Toad, you are the cleverest. The animals in the crowd were always on the side of the underdog. They knew that the Toad really didn't stand a chance of beating the donkey in a race. So they cheered him on to make him feel better. Kids, do you think that's the right thing to do when you judge people and you also make them feel good? But let's find out what happened. It also made them feel better to see Toad stand up for himself, even though the odds were against him. Okay, that could be nice. Alright. Toad and Donkey were always arguing about something, and the rest of the animals found them very entertaining. Toad and Donkey rarely argued about anything in particular, but somehow they managed to irritate each other with a look or a grunt or even a simple sigh. Today, though, the irritation was developing into a battle, and either of them was backing down. "All right," said the donkey, "let's do it. The race is on." Toad was not expecting Donkey to agree to the race so fast, so he hoped for a more banter between them to give him more time to see how he was going to outwit his long-time sparring partner. "Today is not a good day for you," said Toad quickly. "I have things to do. Give me a few days to prepare." Donkey was in no mood for delaying tactics and was raring to go. He pounced the ground with his front hoof and made a cloud of dust which almost choked the tiny Toad. "Oh dear. I'm ready now. Let's do it," he said, his nostrils flaring. "We have to prepare," said Toad, thundering. "We can't just run when we don't even have a route and a finishing line. What kind of race would that be? Let's do this properly." "That's true," said the wise owl, who had woken from her sleep in the branch of a nearby tree. She had overheard the whole conversation. "You can't have a race without a route and a finishing line. Why don't you start here by the savannah? Race up by the crooked tree. Run up to the hill. When you reach the top of a hill, go straight until you reach the bend in the river. Follow the bend down the hill to the other side. Then turn left by the boolyard until you are back to the crooked tree. Then turn left and that will bring you back here." "Okay," said Toad. "Fine with me," said Agreed Donkey. "Here are the rules," said Wise Owl. Because Wise Owl knew about these things and she specialized in making rules, we will mark the 5 places of a route, each with a blue flag. And first by the crooked tree, second by the top of the hill, third on the bend of the road, fourth on the other side of the bend of the hill, fifth on the gas post of a boolyard. And each of these 5 points you have to call out to let us know you have got that far." "Right," said Toad. "Let me get this right. I have to call out when I reach each of the 5 blue flags." "That's right," said the wise owl. "That way we know how far you've reached. When I reach each point, I'll call out 'Croak, croak,'" said the Toad. "And then I'll say 'If-wee, if-wee,'" said the donkey. And the race will finish back here on the savannah, where we will all be waiting," said Wise Owl. "Fowl and I will hold a big red ribbon for the finishing line, and the first one to pass through the red ribbon is the winner." Toad and Donkey agreed. That sounded like a good plan, and the race was set for 1 o'clock that afternoon. Wise Owl got her team together to mark the race route. Duck said he would be the one to give the order to start. Goat and his kids marked the 5 points in the race with blue flags, and the rest of the animals wanted to make sure they didn't miss the excitement, so they went home to make packed lunches ready to bring with them in the afternoon. Once the time and the place of the race were set, Donkey carried on walking as normal, carrying bags of sand to his own house as was his daily routine. He didn't see any point in resting and preparing for the race, as he had no doubt in his mind he would win. Self-confidence. Let's see. Toad, on the other hand, began to worry about what he needed to do to outsmart Donkey. He decided he better take a rest first, so he would have a lot of energy for the race. He went home to his wife and 5 children, but poor Toad couldn't rest. He couldn't stop thinking about how ridiculous he could look if he lost the race, and how Donkey wouldn't ever let him live it down. He would feel so ashamed and didn't want to embarrass his family. He knew it would take him a long time to complete the route with his little legs. Toad decided to do some exercise to prepare. He flexed his little legs and arms over and over again until it would be fit and ready. "Come and eat," Toad's wife said. "You need a healthy meal. You will need all the strength to win the race." Toad's wife believed that Toad, even with his little legs, could beat Donkey in a race. Toad's 5 children all believed he could win too. The best thing you can have is to have a family that believes in you, don't you think, kids? "You are going to win the race, Dad." They all croaked one after the other. "You are going to win the race. You're going to win the race. You're going to win the race." The more they spoke about it, the more worried Toad became. He didn't want to let them down. As Toad listened to all his children croaking, he heard how similar their voices sounded to his own, and he suddenly had an idea. "Come on," he said, rallying his children together. "I have a job for you." Toad put his 5 children in his little bicycle crate. So he stopped at the crooked tree. He hid the first little child behind the bush and said to the child, "I want you to wait here and listen for me Mr. Donkey. When you hear him cry out, if we, I want you to cry out, croak, croak. Child nodded obediently. Toad rode to the next blue flag on top of a hill and hit the second child behind the rock and said to her, I want you to wait here and listen to Mr. Donkey. When you hear him shout, away, I want you to cry out, croak, 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 croak. The second child nodded obediently. Then the toad drove his bicycle with the other three children to the next blue flag, the third in the bend of the road, the fourth on the other side of the bottom of the hill, and the fifth at the gatepost of a bull's yard. At each flag, he hid one of the children and each of them the same instruction. I want you to wait here and listen for Mr. Donkey. When you hear him cry, away, I want you to cry out, croak, 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 croak. Each child nodded obediently. Toad rode on his bicycle to the starting line of the race just in time, because by the time he had finished placing all his children at the marking point, it was close to 1 o'clock. Donkey was already at the starting line, waiting, looking strong, very eager to begin the race. What took you so long to get here, it is? Well, I am here now, Toad said, and I'm ready for the race. Donkey's wife and children were sitting right in the front row, waiting for the race to begin. And each time the donkey boasted, I am going to win him. I'm going to win, they cheered. Today, Toad, you don't even have a family to support you, Donkey mocked. They had stayed at home because they don't want to be ashamed, he laughed. Not true, said Toad's wife, pushing her way to the front of the crowd. The children are not here because they have chores to do, and they will be here later to celebrate when their father wins the race. Donkey laughed and laughed. Hey wee, you are full of jokes today. Before Toad's wife could say anything, Dog took his place and called the race to begin. On your mark, back dog, get ready, go! They were off. Donkey sped off straight away, leaving the cloud of dust behind him. Toad sprouted and coughed through the dust cloud, trying his best to keep up, but just as everyone had anticipated, Toad was behind. Toad looked pitiful, scrambling in the dust and bouncing as much as his little legs could carry him. Toad's wife applauded and cheered as if Toad was miles in front. The crowd watched them heading off towards the forest and waiting for their return. Having created a good distance between himself and the toad, Donkey looked across the savannah and he thought he might as well stop to have a meat to bite. He knew there was no point running flat out when Toad's little legs would take a long time to catch up with him. After he had eaten, he looked back across the savannah in the direction of the starting line. He could see Toad away in a distance, struggling to keep up with him. Donkey laughed. That Toad will never catch up with me. I may as well take a rest. So Donkey got comfortably in the grass and slept off. An hour later, Donkey woke up. Couldn't see Toad, but he was sure he was still behind him. So Donkey trotted over to the first blue flag by the crooked tree. When Donkey reached the flag, he began to brag loudly. I'm going to beat the foolish Toad. How can that little thing think he's faster than me? And remembering the wise owl, what the wise owl said, he called out, away, to let everyone know he had reached the first mark point. Toad's first child heard this, and just as the father had told him, he began to crawl. Donkey couldn't believe his ears. How can Toad have gotten to the cricket tree so quickly when he was far behind? Maybe Donkey had slept a little longer than he thought. I must have spent too much time eating grass in the meadow and too much time sleeping, thought Donkey. I better get moving on. And Donkey sped off as fast as his leg could carry him, this time only to stop for half a minute to drink some water along the way. When Donkey got to the second flag on top of the hill, he bragged loudly, I'm so much faster than that rugged little Toad. He called out, away, to let everyone know he has reached the second mark point. From behind the rock, Toad's second child heard this, and just as her father had told her, she began to crow. Donkey was shocked. How could Toad ever get to the top of a hill so quickly? I must run more quickly to the third blue flag. So Donkey set himself, and he dashed off, trotting all the way without a break. When he got to the the bed of the road, he laughed loudly, bragging, "This little squat toad doesn't stand a chance of winning this race. I'm the champion. I'm the champion. Are we? Are we?" No sooner that he called out when Toad Little Child began to crow from the hiding place. Croak, 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 croak. Donkey couldn't believe what he was hearing, and he was very angry. How did Toad, with his little leg, be getting to the blue flag so quickly? Donkey was feeling tired now, and there was no way he was going to let the little toad beat him. So he ran up even faster than before to the bottom of the hill. But at last, the donkey reached the bottom of the hill. It was the same as before. As soon as the donkey cried out, "And wee!" crying a bit, he heard what he thought was the toad. Croak, 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 croak. He felt it. Still, Donkey wouldn't give up. Running flat out, he made it up to the fifth flag in the bull's yard, and in quick time, but he was completely exhausted. Yet again, he called out, "Hey wee! Hey wee!" His call was quickly followed by of the toad's fifth child. Donkey was so tired, he leaned against the bull's gate, and before he knew it, he had fallen fast asleep. Meanwhile, the toad was having a fine time. He had hidden himself behind the rock halfway between the starting line and the first blue flag, and had rested there, having exhausted himself on the bicycle ride. Now finally rested, Toad had a lot of energy. When he was good and ready, he got himself up and ran back to the place where they started the race. This same place was now the finishing point. Wise Owl and Fowl were there, holding a big red ribbon for the winner to pass through. Toad ran and ran. He hopped and popped and made it look as if he was really tired and he had done the whole section. The crowd cheered when they saw him. With everybody surprised, Toad won the race. Toad's victory party went on all afternoon, and Toad's children soon joined the celebration. There was no sign of a donkey. It was way into the evening, long after Toad's party has ended, when Donkey finally woke up from his snooze, and very embarrassed, he made his way into the savannah. He was utterly ashamed of himself for losing a race against a tiny toad. Donkey never heard the last of how the toad beat him, and never again did he brag about his speed. Never again did he brag about his speed. Kids, what's an important lesson we learned today? Do you brag? Are you proud? Are you spiteful? Do you tell others you are better than them because you're taller, you're smarter, you're more beautiful, you have long legs, you're always in the sports team, you're always on the race team, you're always having the best marks in class? Do you brag? Watch out, there is a little toad behind you that is going to use his own wit to outsmart you. Do not brag about anything, because just like a split second, you will lose everything you think you have because of pride. And so remember, kids, a lesson learned is a lesson to be acted upon. And until next time again, when I see you on another edition of Reading with Joan Storytime, ta-da, bye. Do not